Are you growing weary from the endless friction in your homeschooling days? And you're wondering if maybe perhaps a curriculum change might, in fact, take away some of the struggles you're facing right now? If so, I have some great training that will help you in those decision making. I call it a curriculum process. And I really would love to have you stay with me, interact, and be a part of today's show. I'm Dollie Freeman, and I'm the host of the Charlotte Mason Way Show. And today we're going to be talking about pinpointing curriculum changes. This particular aspect is something that has really been an issue with the homeschooling community for a very long time. And I myself have experienced that from the very beginning of our homeschooling as things didn't feel natural. Things felt a little forced, or maybe not the right feel or the right educational philosophy or what have you. And in doing that, I kept making curriculum changes. And let me tell you, they were not the right choices to just assume right off the bat that the challenges I was facing in homeschooling was because of the curriculum. So if you're struggling right now, say knees, let me know that you're here. Let me know where you are right now. If your curriculum is feeling um, a little questionable at this point, and if you're not sure if it's your curriculum or maybe it's just other things going on, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing with you a curriculum process that will actually help you to understand where the issues are coming from in your homeschooling and what you can do to actually eliminate some of those endless frictions. Good morning, Street Rat. How are you? It's been a long time since I've said hello to you, so thank you for joining me again. So where are you right now? Are you struggling in your homeschooling, or are you having smoother and easier days? I'd love to hear that from you. So, I've been homeschooling since 1999. This has been a long journey for us. We only have one child left in homeschooling. He's in his 5th grade right now. And what's amazing is that sometimes we can find ourselves getting in the same ruts if we're not careful with having a process, having an understanding of what makes us make those decisions and why we choose certain curriculums and what matters to us. And so if you didn't watch last week's show, I really encourage you to do that, because in it, I shared with you 3 questions Charlotte Mason thinks that every mother should ask. Charlotte Mason thought of 3 questions that every mother should be asking herself prior to giving their children curriculum. So you're going to want to watch that if you haven't yet. So let's get into today's topic a little bit and give you an understanding of what it is that will help you create this pinpointing the curriculum challenge, which is one of the steps to a curriculum process that I want to teach you. So the first step is to track the length of lessons. When I first started homeschooling, I had very much a preconceived idea of what homeschooling should look like. First of all, I was not only homeschooled a little bit of my own education, but I had been part of the educational system itself, right? So for me, I thought it was natural for homeschooling to look like, the 8 to 3. Well, guess what? That is not the way that homeschooling should be considered. And when I got into the original pages of Charlotte Mason's writing and realized that she taught short lessons and understood the benefit of short lessons, that it builds the habit of attention, then I began to realize maybe the length of my homeschooling day was just too long. Maybe the lessons were even too long. So then I began to track those individual lessons to decide how much time was really being dedicated to learning and what was being dedicated to the endless friction. So start there. Start with tracking the length of the lessons that you have right now. Now, each of your children should be learning at different lengths of lessons, right? The older they are, the longer they should be able to have full attention and be able to get that whole concept into them in a shorter period of time. So the faster they're reading, the faster they're going to go through the book. The faster they're reading, the more content they're going to be able to consume in a shorter period of time. The more that they are narrating, they're going to be able to process more of the information and retain it. So there's a lot to be said about the lengths of lessons. So you want to start there before you make any of your curriculum changes. Just make sure it's not the way that you're actually doing the curriculum that's the problem, okay? All right, so number 2. Second one is to gauge the level of interest. Now, if you don't know anything about Charlotte Mason, she actually says that children should delight in their education. They actually should be loving what it is that they're learning. And here's a quote from Charlotte Mason. The mother who takes pains to endow her children with good habits secures for herself smooth and easy days, while she who lets habits take care of themselves has a weary life of endless friction with the children. So when we understand that the shorter lessons is going to help the child's interest be there a little bit longer, because now they're more engaged with it, right? And in those short period of time, they can find of interest. Now, there might be a problem with the curriculum you chose. It may just be dry. Have you ever heard a speaker speak or started to read a book and you're just like, this is just not my cup of tea. I am just not enjoying it. This is just something that's rubbed me the wrong way. What have you? Children are the same way. So depending on their interests, they're going to be more attracted to a certain type of topic of a subject, or perhaps even an author. Right now, we're devouring the Jean Craig George books. All of our children have loved her series. So our 5th grader is now on the second of her trilogies. So this is the second trilogy he's going through right now. And we've just devoured some of her little books as well. So when you find someone who you just really love the way that they write, the way that they produce a curriculum, sometimes you just find that a child will navigate to that. So always gauge the level of interest. So before I go into the third point, I want to share this quote with you. Therefore, the selection of their first lesson books is a matter of grave importance, because it rests with these to give children the idea that knowledge is supremely attractive and that reading is delightful. So if you're really feeling like perhaps your child's not loving what it is that you're giving them, I would highly recommend that you talk a little bit about, diving into what it is that that child's of interest is, and see if you can't find something that works better for them. I cannot tell you how many times I've put a book down, 2 or 3 chapters into it and realize, it's just not my cup of tea. It's not my son's cup of tea, but I can grab another one. You'll always hear me say that there are too many books to force one on a child. So you want to have that same mentality and be okay to make those shifts as long as you are ensuring that you're doing it for the right reasons and that, in fact, it's not a level of interest. All right, so the third part is elevate the level of difficulties. There's nothing like a child losing interest in a subject or even a lesson due to the fact that they find it cumbersome. They find it challenging to read. They find it challenging to understand. And when they are really coming into a lesson without the confidence that they're going to be able to, first of all, understand it, let alone retain it, and thirdly, retell it, is really hard for a child if the difficulty is too high for them. So understanding what level your child's, not just their interest, but their ability and their skill is so important. Just this year, I have literally changed a few of our books on our list because my 5th grader wasn't quite at that level yet. He was having too many places where he needed my help. to sound out the word or to understand certain things. So I took him back a notch. And next thing you know, he's building the confidence. He's going through the book again. So making sure that you're evaluating that level of difficulty will help you make that process to pinpoint those true reasons why curriculum needs to change. And if you go through all of these and you find out that, the length of time is right, that the gauging of the interest is there, and the difficulty is right, well, then Charlotte Mason Mama, you might have some other issues that need some attention. And I'm real excited to be telling you that I have more in this curriculum process that will help you understand what to look for, how to evaluate, how to identify, and then how lastly to make those curriculum choices with confidence as to why you're making them. That way you're not making the same mistakes again and again. You have the confidence and the understanding of what to do moving forward. Now, if you are wanting some help with the Charlotte Mason way and what a little bit of understanding on a curriculum level, I have this resource for you, and I'm going to put it, because the URL is really long, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the comments, but I would love to answer some of your questions and say hello to you and connect with you on this call. So let's see here. Street Rat, you're doing okay. That's wonderful. And it's hello, Chelsea. My contacts, I'm telling you, my contacts are not my friend anymore. I'm glad to see you here. And Lynn, welcome. Nice to have you guys here. Chelsea says the quality of learning over the time you spend learning. That's it. I mean, if you were on last week's call, you would have heard a quote that I shared with you about Charlotte Mason, stating that 3/4 of the time we spend in teaching is really wasted time because the children are just not going to retain it. So really getting into the quality of learning over the quantity is so important. And that's where the short lessons come in. That's where you can really build that habit of attentiveness and get your children to be able to absorb what it is that they're learning. It's a powerful process when you put your why in front of it. Why am I requiring our children to really learn this, right? So if you haven't watched last week's show, really start there because it's a powerful foundation for this. Lynn, hello. How to handle certain kids of bored no matter what, even with short lessons and trying to find things that they enjoy. Let me put this one on. How to handle certain kids are bored no matter what, even with short lessons and trying to find things that they enjoy. The attitude is like school is required to be boring. That's a challenge that a lot of us homeschooling moms have. And so I guarantee you haven't nailed the interest yet. When a child has yet to understand, let me hide this as well. When you get to a point where your child is just not liking school, there are some things that you're going to want to work with. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in upcoming shows, right? But what it's really important is when that same child, you need to focus on what it is that that particular child is interested in. Guaranteed that child is talking about something a lot. Guaranteed that that child is really focused on making the things that interest him important in his or her life. For instance, here's an excellent example of my own life with our son, who was a struggling learner. I just had tried for years. Unbeknownst to me, he was dyslexic. Back all those years, you didn't hear about dyslexia inside the homeschooling community. Now it's everywhere. So I did not know what that was. I had already successfully taught over 20 children to read, including my daughter. So I know how to teach to read. So it was like, what is wrong? And I didn't know if it was the curriculum changes that I needed to make, right? And so I made those changes again and again and again. But really what it was is those multiple changes in my son's learning process and the formation of reading only confused him and derailed his learning because we had to start something new and it frustrated him and it made him feel stupid. They were his words. I feel so stupid. And it derailed his confidence and it made us work harder and it took us much longer. But when I got to a place where I focused on the delight, making sure his education was a delight to him, when I got there, I realized this child cannot stop talking about animals. That's what he talks about all day long. He's out there looking for snakes and all kinds of reptiles. He's out there looking for fish. He knows every type of snake there is. And so when I'm like, okay, this is his interest, I'm going to teach him to read with animals, everything animals. And that became our curriculum. So then when we got into history, we were looking for naturalists. We were looking for people who, Lewis and Clark, that's what my fifth grader is learning about right now. Perfect example of being able to bring history with animals, right? Because they were coming across a whole lot of animals along the way. So you really have to just focus in on the individual child and find the interest and let them realize learning is fun. And so we're going to talk more about those challenging children in the upcoming episodes. So I want you to stay with me on that. And, I'm looking at my list here. Next week, I'm going to be talking about identifying limiting homeschool mindsets. So you're going to want to show up for that. It'll begin to open up the door to those who might have some children who are struggling and liking to learn, as well as on January 6th, I'll be teaching an extended show where you're going to want to save 90 minutes of your time. I'm going to talk about 3 hindering habits that are affecting your homeschooling. And so when you get that into this process of your curriculum choices, you're going to be able to identify really where the challenges are coming into your homeschool so that you can zone in on fixing them. Chelsea says, I cried through the first 2.5 years of homeschooling. Chelsea, I cried longer than that. I'm just going to be telling you the truth. I did not know what I was doing wrong. And unfortunately, the anxiety I was having and my issues were passed off to my son. And so, that's what Charlotte Mason talks about, the masterly inactivity of making sure that we're not passing on our own mindsets to our children. So it's so important. And you're welcome, Lynn. Glad to have done that. The cool thing about I'm going to put this up because I love this. The cool thing about homeschooling is school can look however you need it to look like. And it's so true. And when you're really zooming in on your child's abilities of interest, and making sure all of those 3 things I just taught today are in place, you really will see a change. Even if your child right now does not like learning, in just a few weeks, you can get that child loving learning. A lot of my clients are experiencing that right now. And so I really want to encourage you guys to not give up. It's in the consistency of homeschooling and the consistency of the Charlotte Mason way that you will secure smoother and easier days, and you will raise not just children who love to learn, but you will raise self-educating children. All right, so I look forward to next week's show. You're going to want to put that on your schedule to join me. We're going to be talking about, let me just refresh and make sure I remember. We're going to be talking about identifying limiting homeschooling mindsets. And I'm going to share a story about how I really had a mindset that was causing so much conflict in my mind and in my children's mind, and keeping us from those smoother and easier days because of it. So it's so important. And it's something that a lot of us are talking about when we have our homeschooling platform, but it's one that will make a world of difference. And it will help you to understand if it's really the curriculum or if it's more of a mindset. So let's talk about that next week. Yes, I'm going to put this up really quick as we're entering. Lynn says it is honestly so hard to keep other people's expectation from weighing you down. We're going to talk about that next week because it is definitely an important thing that totally can derail everything you do. Thank you guys for joining me on today's show and interacting with me live. I look forward to next week. Until then, keep doing what you're doing, Charlotte Mason Mamas, because it's through consistency you'll get those securing, the smoother and easier days. Until next time, bye for now.